This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. This is a sponsored message. I've been using Anchor as my podcast host for a while now, and it's been a pleasure to use. Anchor offers benefits that most other hosts do not. It's free to use, but it also has a collection of tools that allow you to create a podcast completely within the Anchor website or smartphone app. They distribute your show to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other distribution channels without any additional effort on your part, and you can make money from your podcast without any minimum audience size. So you can use it as a more traditional podcast host like I do, but it's also got everything you need to start a podcast from scratch. If you're keen to give it a shot, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Wednesday, September 21st, 2022. Apologies for not recording podcasts these past couple of days. As you can probably still hear in my voice, I have been sick, and I'm still sick today, but I think I should be able to squawk out at least 1 podcast episode, and I will attempt to do so for the rest of the week as well. So apologies in advance for my voice, but that said, let's talk about the news. From the New York Times, fuel hike plunges Haiti into near anarchy. Many residents of Haiti's capital lack food and drinking water, and protesters are looting shops and attacking banks and wealthier parts of the city, fueling what regional leaders are calling a, quote, low-intensity civil war, end quote. This new wave of protests, which follows several years of lower-level versions of the same, was triggered by an announcement last weekend that the government would be increasing the country's fuel prices by reducing the size of their fuel subsidies. Residents have been suffering under constant threats of gang violence, irregularly available basic infrastructure, and widespread hunger, alongside the recent assassination of the Haitian president. And the current caretaker government is under vocal and increasingly physical attack from supporters of the opposition leader, who has been encouraging rally attendees to, among other things, set the country's banks on fire. And this general sentiment has been echoed by a prominent local gang leader who has said that the government must be overthrown. From the Associated Press, Beirut protesters demand release of bank heist detainees. Protesters have been out in the streets of Beirut these past few days, demanding the release of 2 people who were arrested last week after attempting to help a woman rob a bank, demanding she be given $13,000 from her own savings account after she was told she could only take out $200 each month. A recent trend in Lebanon has seen ordinary people walk into banks and, quote-unquote, rob them, usually but not always with fake weapons, demanding the teller give them their own money. An economic meltdown across the country, ostensibly caused by the government's bad decisions and spending habits, has led to surging prices and increasingly abysmal public services, and bank patrons have had their withdrawals limited, even if they need a great deal of money for cancer treatments, as was the case with this most recent bank robber. And that's why the folks holding up the banks are being seen as the heroes in this story, and the government is generally perceived to be the villain. And from Reuters, polluters must pay, says United Nations chief, as he urges taxes to help climate victims. United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres, addressing world leaders from the podium of the UN General Assembly yesterday, encouraged wealthy, heavily polluting countries to pay for the damage caused to less wealthy, less emitting countries via windfall taxes applied to locally operating fossil fuel companies. There's an increasingly vocal cadre of world leaders who have suggested that the wealthy world should pay what amounts to reparations to the poorer world for the damage they and their economies have done to the planet over the years. And this most recent call also suggested that we tax oil and gas and coal companies that have been making incredible profits recently due to supply chain issues caused by the pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and then use that money to rebuild destroyed cities, move people whose homes have been flooded out of existence, and generally help prepare the world for the new climate reality we're stepping into. Some countries, like the United Kingdom, have already passed windfall taxes of this kind, though widespread, global versions of such taxes and payout models have not yet been proposed, much less implemented. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com. And you can support this and other related projects, like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts, at understandery.com.